Welcome everyone to our webinar on using Listenwise for remote learning with your secondary students. And I really like to think of this as an office hours more than a webinar. I want to take your questions and hear your thoughts through the chat box. If you could all mute, please, that'd be best. And we are going to be talking about a lot of fun ways to use Listenwise. And let me introduce myself first. I'm Monica Brady-Myerov, and I'm the founder and CEO of Listenwise. And I'm honored by being joined by Laura Krenicki, who is a sixth grade teacher in Connecticut. And Laura, why don't you just give a quick introduction and tell us a little bit about how your remote teaching is going?
Hi, everyone. Thanks for having me today. I'm so happy to join you. Yes, it's thunderstorming here in Connecticut where I am too. And I also see somebody else is in New Haven and it's storming in there too. So we'll all get through it, I think. I think everybody in this webinar is probably in the same figurative boat. We're trying to figure out how to do some remote learning. And I'm finding that using some of the Listenwise tools has been really helpful. I'm interested to know how some of the participants here today, how they are faring with their distance learning, where they are. We're starting our third week here. And so we're kind of getting into our groove, but you know, it's a challenge. And I know a lot of people here are looking for strategies, I'm sure, to get through this challenge.
All right, thanks, Laura. We're going to be hearing some of the ways that she's using Listenwise and hope that you can learn from it too. I'm going to turn off my video and just head into the agenda for today and tell you that we're going to be talking about how to access Listenwise remotely with your students, how to use some particular points in the program that are, it's all good for remote learning, but we're going to highlight a few excellent ways. And Laura's going to be helping me do that. And also how to activate student-led learning. And please, this is really as much about your questions and what you want to know as anything else. So use that chat box. All right, first the nuts and bolts. I'm not sure how many of you are super users of Listenwise, or you've never touched it, or you've dabbled in it, but we are a fully digital listening skills platform. We have more than 2,000 audio stories, and they are all about 3 to 5 minutes in length. And they are selected to be aligned with the curriculum you're teaching in social studies, ELA, and science. And then we build teaching resources around them so that they can easily be assigned digitally and, again, help you touch on standards. And it is free right now during school closure. So Listenwise is a free product to listen to most of the audio stories. In general, there is a segment that will always be free. But right now, during this really challenging time, we decided this is about supporting you. This is about giving you something you can use that is pedagogically sound and aligned to your curriculum. So you can sign up for free Listenwise Premium at listenwise.com. Now, once you've done that, there are a few things you want to get done to really fully leverage the platform remotely, such as creating your classes and enrolling students. And I have made video links to those in this webinar presentation, which you will be getting the slides as well as a recording of this. So how do you get on Listenwise, first of all? Well, it is accessible on any laptop, desktop, Chromebook, or mobile device. And I want to stress the mobile device here because I know that technology is not equally distributed among our students, and some might not have the same level of connectivity as others. And using Listenwise on a mobile device can pull on data and just be a little easier to access if students are in a home where there are not enough laptops or Chromebooks for everyone to be using at the same time. So don't forget the mobile platform. The other easy thing I want to point out is how well we integrate with Google Classroom. So you can do a single sign-on for you and all of your students and import your whole roster as well as share assignments and integrate your grading all on Google. So I'll be showing you some of that right away, but that's just makes it super easy to adopt rather. Now, in terms of accessing it, like I said, on the phone, it's really very easy. And one thing I want to point out is that streaming audio content takes up less bandwidth than a movie or sometimes even music. So it is really easy to use on the cell phones. The other thing I want to spend a moment on, and I'm going to go into the platform shortly and show you this, is just how to search on Listenwise, because that's your most powerful way to just quickly get into the platform and find something that you think your students will like, or that's related to curriculum or circling back to something that you've taught. So I'm going to jump into there and show you how you can search for ListenWise stories by topic, by Lexile audio measure, and that they all have transcripts. So ListenWise has a collection of current events, which we update every school day, and lessons, which are more highly curated and aligned to the content you're teaching. But the search bar gives you access to both of them. So I'm just going to press return in the search bar to bring up the advanced search and show you that you can search by subject, by Lexile audio measure. This is brand new. I'm really excited about it. It is the first independent third-party research-driven tool that tells you an audio measure for the audio that you listen to. So if you want to learn more about it, you click on this question mark right here, and it tells you all about this measure. This is made by Metametrics, the same company that brought you the Lexile text measure, and it is an indicator of the complexity of an audio passage. So it's based on a scientifically developed scale, and then that scale is broken down into what we look at as listening levels, low, medium, and high. That's how we've previously categorized our audio. So if you're familiar with ListenWise, that will look familiar to you. But you can also look for recommended grade level audio measures. One thing I want to point out here is that students can listen 2 to 3 grade levels higher than they can read. So don't be surprised if you're looking at a 7th grade audio measure and it seems to be several hundred points higher than what you know the text measure would be, or what you know your student's reading level is at. That's okay. What is so awesome about audio is that students can absorb more information and understand vocabulary at a higher level when they are listening than when they are reading. So you can go in here, and since we are talking to a middle and high school audience, I'm going to unclick that low box and look for stories that are in the medium to high range. And I'm also going to just go for middle school lessons. And then I'm going to click search, and it will return all of those. And you can see right away that the audio measure is here along with low, medium, or high. Then if I want to make sure it has a quiz, I'm going to click on that box. And then you see these have the auto-scored multiple choice quizzes, which I'll be sharing with you in a moment. But first, I want to show you one really super, super easy way to assign a ListenWise audio story. If you don't have time or you don't have interest in setting up your classes and your students onboarded, if for some reason that's too much of it's a lot of work for you, and it really isn't, especially if you're Google Classroom, every story has this share audio link. When you click on it, it brings up this URL. You can copy and paste that into an email, into your home page. You can share it with Google Classroom, and then students can immediately listen to the story. Now, what is missing from that, though, is the transcript. You do need to have students logged in to see the transcript. But if you just want to have kids engaged in listening to something interesting that's related to the content you're teaching, that share audio link is super, super easy. Now I'm going to invite Laura back to join us and talk a little bit about how she's been using ListenWise in her classroom, starting with current events, right, Laura? All right, I don't hear you.
I had to unmute myself. I'm sorry. I launched in and forgot I was muted. Yes, one of the things that we have been tasked with, and I know many of you on this webinar today are probably in the same situation where we are asked not to do any new content with students, that we're supposed to reinforce some content that we've done earlier in the year. However, I've been using ListenWise in the classroom since the beginning of the year, so as far as I'm concerned, all the students know what my expectations are for how to use the platform. So when we first were let out, there's a story on there called What is Coronavirus? Because of course the kids all wanted to know what that was about, and there it is, the little bear was on there. And what I liked about sharing this with students is that first of all, the story was first recorded in February, so it is noted on there that some of the information may be a little bit updated now, but I really wanted to use it to see how students were handling what they hear in the news, and how we can look at that social emotional side of it. So yes, it might be a new article for the students, which might be new learning to find out about it, but the platform itself for us wasn't new, so it felt comfortable to assign this article to them. And when
Laura,
you scroll,
let
yeah,
me play a little bit of it and
please.
see what the story's about. And then if you walk us through the assignment process, because I love that you took what is a news story but added an SEL element to it. So I'm just going to play a little bit and then show you the assignment resources. And you can see how the interactive transcript works.
This is Extra Scoops, the show for kids about all the cool stuff happening in the world and what it means to you. I'm Andrew Rosen. You've probably heard by now about a new disease called coronavirus. And a lot of people have been talking about it because it's so new, and scientists are trying to understand how it works, how it spreads, and how to stop it.
All right, so you can see that the transcript stays in time with the audio. This is a research-based literacy approach that helps students comprehend more, retain more, get exposure to higher level vocabulary words. And I want you to know, too, you can download the transcript or you can also hide it. But in the assignment resources that come with every single story have this listening comprehension question bank and discussion theme. And then, Laura, tell me how you use the create assignment to leverage these questions, but take it a step further.
Absolutely. So we took those questions that are at the bottom, and I decided I wanted to keep my whole assignment to about 20 minutes in length. So if you notice, the audio was about 3 minutes. It's also, if you could tell, it sounded like it was in kid-friendly language, which is another reason why I liked it. And so I took the questions and I eliminated one of them and kept 3 comprehension questions, and then I kept the last one, which asks the students, now that you've heard all of this information, what questions do you have for me about it? So it opened it up so we could have actually a little dialogue. So the kids asked really thoughtful questions in that. There you go. she's updating it right now. So you can change the question to be the way you wanted. And then kids asked really thoughtful questions, things that went beyond what the story was, things that they had heard. Now, just so you all know, I'm a 6th grade global studies teacher, so to put that in perspective for the age of the kids. And then they each asked me questions, and I would say this time I actually spent really a long time because I wanted to really thoughtfully respond to each one of them, because it was, you know, things that are concerning to them, things that are on their mind, and things they really want to know the answers to. And I felt like I had an obligation to kind of put them at ease and to let them know that they're doing what they need to be doing by staying home. But it was really a powerful thing. So the next day, then I followed up with a whole group Google Meet and invited any students who wanted to come in, and we could just talk about, you know, what we had learned, what we thought, and about the feedback we had given. One other note before we click away from there about the transcripts. So there is the ability to turn it on and off, which is great if you're really trying to assess student listening skills and you want kids just to listen to it. But for our friends who are ELL, or I have several students this year who have hearing impairments, and part of their plan is to make sure to have, if possible, either closed captioning or some type of text, having it track for them along the bottom of the, as you notice when it was playing, it turns blue when it tracks, is super helpful for those friends. So I always leave it on. I used to turn it off just to make sure kids were really listening, but now I've realized what a good tool that is.
When you go through the create assignment process, the box is automatically checked. So the default is to provide the transcript, but it's easy to uncheck that box.
Yes.
It's also easy to only make an assignment for a few students. So those students who said who have hearing impairments need a different set of supports than others, and you can easily make the same assignment with those adjustments in it. What I'm showing you here is, like, once I made that assignment, it appeared in my assignments tab, and I can look at it and follow the responses here and see that so far nobody has started it in my class yet, but if they had, I would be able to look into that student, see what they'd written, and then provide feedback at the bottom of it. And Laura was telling me that this really cool exercise around that added the question about, well, what else do you want to know? She got so many answers, and she was able to give very detailed feedback in the Listenwise platform that went directly back to the students in a written format, in addition to the additional Google Hangout you had, right, Laura?
Correct. And I actually used this feedback from this assignment in order to drive the conversation in the Hangout the following day.
Oh, that's great. That is such a cool way to use it. And I just want to point out one other thing. When you look at the assignment and I'll just show you this one at the top. It's a different story, but I want to show you this preview is what your students see. And I want you to note there's this new blue bar over here, and this provides additional supports for language learners or struggling readers. It is a screen reader, not a complete one, but allows you to highlight any word and have it defined. You can have it read out loud, defined, and translate it into Spanish or a picture dictionary. So one of our participants asked, how does the feedback return to the students? It's returned within the platform. So when they log in, they will see the feedback. And you can share your assignments on Google Classroom with the transcript for sure. But when you share that feedback, though, it only goes to the student you directed it to. Other students cannot see the feedback and responses.
Yeah, and I see Holly is asking that question. It doesn't show up in Google Classroom like the way it would pop up on the side for student view. What I did was once I had gone through and done the feedback in Listenwise, I sent a little note to all of the kids, like when they mark the assignment is done in Google Classroom, I can then send a note back to them in bulk and saying, I left you feedback in Listenwise, so make sure you log in and see the note I left you. So that's a way students can find their feedback.
All right, great. Let me pop back over here to the presentation and talk about another really easy way to be able to assign a Listenwise audio story. The other thing I want to mention too, though, is that you can revise the feedback, right, Laura? You can go in and revise it based on, they can make revisions to their work, and you can revise your feedback and regrade it.
Yeah, I should have mentioned at the bottom, right before you turn in the feedback, it does give you, gives the student a chance to revise. So if you think that a student could have done a better job, you can say send back to student for revision, or you can just submit the feedback as is.
Perfect. So going a little further, another really great option on Listenwise is to assign a multiple choice auto-scored listening quiz. We've created these quizzes based on 8 strands of listening comprehension. So it's testing things like main point, literal understanding, inferencing, vocabulary, and context. You do need to have set up your classes and have students enrolled in them to be able to assign a quiz. And you can assign it with or without the transcript, and depending on, again, the level of support you feel like the students need. And every Wednesday, our current events have quizzes, and they also tend to be lighter, more fun stories that we think would engage students. Because right now, it's hard, I'm sure, to keep their attention and time focused on tasks. So we're trying to give you a lot of fun and interesting things to do with students as well. So the way you find a quiz is, again, when you're searching, just check that off with the quiz. And now I'm going to go to a story that I know you've used in the past, Laura. Can you tell me about this story and how you've used it, and then we can walk through the quiz?
Sure. Are you showing the Lost Boys?
Yeah, the Lost Boys of Sudan.
Great. Yeah, so the reason why I really enjoy the Lost Boys one, first of all, it connects to our curriculum. We studied A Long Walk to Water, and we do quite a big, extensive project on refugees, and we also do the global goals in grade 6. So we keep referring back to places in the world where there may be crisis. Well, now everybody's in crisis, but I think this story is very impactful, first of all, because it ties directly to the book, The Long Walk to Water. But in addition to that, this particular story has a lot of additional resources that go with it. So it's almost like a little mini unit right with this one story. And the story is only about 7 minutes. But if you notice where she's scrolling down, it has a story on one part. It has some listening strategies, some organizers. It has a teaching guide, which is fantastic for you. It has some terms and how it matches with the standards. It has a quiz it scores itself, which is brilliant. And then it does have the scaffolding. So especially for our friends who may not know some of those terms, it does like build some of the vocabulary. There's a tier 2 and tier 3. And then it has additional class activities that also bring in outside text support. So if you're trying to make like a text set of asking students to to do some listening, to do some reading, to look at some images. There's some additional resources that are available there. So you don't, oh, there you go. Thank you for the external materials. Yes, thank you. And the infographics. And the students themselves, now that you have a premium account, they are able to access some of those materials as well. So if we ask them to go into it and look for that information, they can do some of the inquiry themselves.
Now here I'm showing a preview of the quiz, so you can just take a look at it and make sure it seems appropriate for your students. And then the way you assign it is going up to this orange bar that says Assign Quiz, and you get to choose whether it's with the transcript or without. And I'll just show it to you briefly here. I'm going to click Next. And what I really love about the quiz is that it's going to give your students immediate feedback at the end of the quiz without your having to do anything. They will know how well they did. I'm taking wild guesses here, so let's see how I did.
Before you click, before you click on the right side, that blue box also allows the students to go back and listen and pause it, so they can check as they're listening, they can stop it and see if they can find the answer. And I love that you can move that little bar around. So if that's not in a good spot, you can drag it. Yeah, thanks.
At any point, actually, so even when you get the results, you still hear the whole story.
Next, we'll hear from a man who was driven from his
they
country
can
and who
look through and say, oh, wait,
only to be told.
He ran alone.
Here's the answer I
like
see.
So many of the lost boys,
he say for sure. I came and it was Daniel Majoga there.
So the student can review it, right? And this bar is that screen reader that I was showed you before, but it's really helpful, again, for students who are struggling readers to be able to have the question read.
What is the best meaning of the words?
You'll notice there is no way to define it or translate it into Spanish in the quiz mode because we are actually asking them to demonstrate knowledge on those factors. Now, I know somebody had put in the question box that some schools are asking their teachers to avoid using quizzes as a power school grade since they like to use it as supplemental to drive class discussion, wondering if that's the case for anyone else. You know, the quizzes don't need to necessarily be graded. To me, in my view, and Laura, I don't know how you feel about this, but in this time of remote learning where you're disconnected and you just want to know quickly whether a student listened to something and they get immediate feedback on it, the quizzing is a great opportunity to do that. And
that's exactly what we think too. We're giving, assignments that we want the kids to try to do their best. If they just don't have any sense of what is an acceptable, level of work, we want them to do their best. So we don't have to mark it in Power School as a numerical grade. We can just say that they attempted it.
We have another question about sharing assignments with other teachers and can they invite their own students to do assignments? We do not at this point have the capability to do teacher sharing of assignments in the platform. It's something we're thinking about, but they can register for their own accounts. And you can let them know that anybody can come on to listenwise.com and sign up for their free premium account and start making their own assignments and favoriting the stories that they like. I want to point out this fun story this is a Wednesday current event. It's a really neat story about what's happening with animals at the zoo during coronavirus. And what we have too is the ability to assign the quiz here too. So that's one great tip to just quickly using ListenWise in a way that will engage your students in something fun and interesting. The other thing I want to show you is something new we've added just recently, and that is weird news. Laura, have you used any of these yet? Oh, this is take off.
I haven't used them, but I've actually listened to them, and I'm thinking, oh, they're fantastic. I haven't shared them with kids yet.
Okay, these are really short, 30-second stories that are about just strange, weird news explains it. I'm going to play one for you because it's only 30 seconds. And what we've done in this is focused on the vocabulary in it as the instructional point that we suggest you make. And what we do is in our listening comprehension questions and discussion theme questions, we repeat those vocabulary words so that if you want to create that assignment, you can be highlighting those words. So you should be listening for the words agenda and contained.
Good morning, I'm Rachel Martin. Cats have their own agenda. Sometimes even the pros can't contain them.
Quilty is a cat at the Friends for Life shelter in Houston, Texas. He repeatedly lets other cats out of their rooms. The shelter wrote on Facebook that Quilty will not be contained, and he has no shame. It says if someone is looking for a pet that gets along with the dog but not closed doors, they've got the cat for you. And there have been lots of offers, but then Quilty might not want to escape, and where's the fun in that?
So, the kind of news that kids are going to probably tell their friends about or mention to their parents. It just adds a little levity, especially at this time of a lot of heavy stuff and isolation, and it's been really hard to.
The one I looked at was the dog radio one, because we actually use the Calm app on Fridays at school, and if anybody uses the Calm app, they're offering a free extended version right now, which is to help you breathe, and it's kind of like that. It's not necessarily meditation, but kind of that self-awareness. And it occurred to me, if the dogs need to have a radio to calm themselves down, we do too. So I thought the kids might get a kick out of that.
The other thing, somebody just asked whether we're FERPA and COPA compliant. Yes, Listenwise is. We have signed the Student Data Privacy Pledge, and we are, and we've also signed many data privacy agreements with states and districts that require that. Definitely, we are very aware of that and following all of the legal guidelines around that. When your students join the platform, they're not required to have an email. So that is, that's one of the many things we do to protect the privacy of our students. So any more questions? And Laura, is there another thing you want to share?
No, you did great. Thank you for asking me to join you today. I appreciate it.
It's been fun. So again, I'm just going to go back to the current events and really point you in that direction, because I feel like at this time of great uncertainty and the fact that you're not always, many districts and schools are asking teachers not to introduce new content. So Listenwise can be a great way to review the same content with a different modality. Many states, 22 states test listening on their state tests, right? Connecticut's one of them, right, Laura?
Yes, it is.
So is California and many others. So if you've already done if you've already done your unit on The Great Gatsby or Romeo and Juliet, and you want to be able to do another, get them back and get them thinking about it some more, Listenwise would be a great place to ask them to just listen to a few stories about Shakespeare that would circle back to what they've learned. And so just trying to think of it in ways that can help engage your students and also reinforce their learning. So if you see one other question, in setting up accounts with without Google Classroom, you don't need student emails. You just need to roster their names. What you do, actually, I'll just show that right now. You go into classes and you can create a new class at any time. So right up there in the top right, it says add new class or import Google Classroom. When you add a new class, you just give it a name. I know most of you are going to be middle to high school, but you accept the privacy policy for your students. If you're elementary, you want to click this button, because that does help. Your students will be able to do their own browsing on Listenwise. They cannot assign themselves quizzes or written assignments, but they can browse and listen. Now I've created this class and it's given me this code, and your students go to this URL to sign up using the code. So it's really straightforward. They only need to do it once, and then it's done for the rest of the time that they use the platform. So we really hope that this webinar/office hours has helped you come up with a few new ideas of ways to engage your students with interesting content. We love podcasts, we love audio, and I think that especially in remote learning, it can be a great way to engage your students. So I hope you've learned something today, and thank you all very, very much for coming, and especially thanks to you, Laura, for joining me today.
Thanks for having me, and I hope everybody stays safe and well.